morning, Malta and Gozo, and welcome to another edition of Lovin Daily. I do hope you've had a lovely weekend. I am Jonathan Chilia. Today I am joined by Yannick Poch. It was another busy weekend for Malta, as it always is. Let's jump right into the headlines. Murder suspect Jurgen Fennick feared Chris Fearn becoming Prime Minister. The police force are investigating a man over a series of suspicious cat deaths in Valletta. The Nationalist Party says this is a rich people's government as Labour surges ahead in a survey. 2 officers were beaten in Spinola Bay after trying to confiscate party equipment at 3 a.m. and abandoned vehicles are piling up at the former trade fair grounds in Nashar. Now, a quick reminder, if you have not yet signed up for Lovin Digest, I don't know what you are waiting for. It is the easiest and quickest way for you to get the latest news right into your inbox. So definitely go on lovinmalta.com and sign up for Lovin Digest if you haven't yet. Yannick.
So, our first story for a change is about Jurgen Fennick. Jurgen Fennick feared the potential election of Chris Fearn as Prime Minister after Joseph Muscat's resignation. Well-informed sources who spoke to Lovin Malta have detailed exchanges between Fennick and a well-known businesswoman around about May 2019, which is a few months before his arrest and Muscat's eventual resignation. At the time, Fearn was already Deputy Prime Minister and had long been touted as a potential successor to Muscat, something Fennick was not too keen on. He allegedly told his contact that this eventuality needed to be avoided at all costs. Fearn eventually did lose a leadership bid to current Prime Minister Robert Abela, who has received quite a bit of criticism because people perceive him as being, an extension of Muscat. In fact, he even ran on a platform of being sort of the continuity candidate. It's also understood that Muscat at some point during the race had started to back Abela, something he even said himself during a recent interview with the Times of Malta, where he basically said that his wife Michelle had knocked on doors in order to get Abela elected. Abela on his part has done his utmost to distance himself from Muscat and from this narrative of him being an extension of him. In fact, he recently dismissed the former Prime Minister's suggestion that he could come back to politics, saying, Joseph Muscat resigned his post as Prime Minister and MP, so his position today is crystal clear, he said during a press conference. Beyond the assassination, potential links to his office and allegations of leaks from the investigation, Muscat has been confirmed to have had quite a close relationship with Fennick, even having invited him to his exclusive parties and sharing a WhatsApp group with him and former Chief of Staff Keith Schembri.
I have to say, if I was Chris Fearn, I'd be pretty chuffed with this. The idea that murder suspect, one of the leading businessmen with his hands in many people's pockets, would say, his election must be avoided at all costs is quite a telling of how he perceived him. So I would be quite happy if I was Chris Fearn with that. And when it comes to Jurgen Fennick, he's back in court again today at this very moment in relation to money laundering charges. So definitely stay tuned on lovinmalta.com for more on that sitting. Moving on to another police investigation though. A man has been called in by police in Valletta following a series of suspicious cat deaths in a bit of a bay in Valletta. So an area called Il Fossa. In that area, there's quite a popular bar known as the Maori Bar. And the owner of this bar, Simone Falson, has taken to social media to open up how she's lost not 1, not 2, but 3 cats over the last few weeks and months until she found one of her cats, the youngest one, the most recent one, Milo, dead in the sea. She found his body herself, and she has subsequently uploaded CCTV footage which shows a man loitering near her establishment, following her cat, stalking her cat, you could even say, looking under a van as the cat is running around. It's quite scary footage if you're a cat lover and a cat owner, especially if you've had a cat stolen or lost only to turn up dead. Falsan opened up about being left helpless by the police as well as animal welfare when she did try to reach out to them and bring this story up. However, now police have stepped in and they have now called in a man. It's not yet sure if this is the man in the CCTV footage per se, but at least there's a bit of a development in this case.
So, I can get not being a huge fan of cats, but kind of to just walk around killing people's cats is something I can never never understand. On to our next story. The leader of the Nationalist Party, Bernard Grech, yesterday lashed out at government and described it as a government for the rich. Government was speaking during a brief interview on Net yesterday where he spoke about recent controversy surrounding the Marsa Scala Marina. The plans which were announced earlier actually last month have received criticism from residents and NGOs alike, and there's been a general, quite a strong pushback from the population. Greg said that unlike Labour, the PN would listen to all members of society and obviously would consult with, for example, residents before embarking on such plans. He also referred to a recent disinformation campaign which hit the island, which he said was not only spreading fake news but was also trying to silence those who speak up. His comments came a day after nationalist MP Jason Atsopardi was threatened with a slap lawsuit in Bulgaria over a speech he had given in Parliament. The interview was also came on the day of the latest opinion survey published by Malta Today that found Prime Minister Abela still maintaining a 22-point lead over Bernard Grech, with Labour Party enjoying a 33,000 vote roughly lead. Despite the gap, the PN has interpreted the results as being positive and as indicating that slowly but surely people are starting to turn to the PN. In fact, the party's chief strategist Chris Perigin in a post yesterday said that Labour and PN pointed out that Labour and PN were now neck and neck in the 16 to 30-year-old age group, while the PN was beating Labour among those aged 65 plus and those with a tertiary education. As for Abela, he obviously interpreted the results as showing the public's faith in his administration, which he said was capable of recognizing past mistakes, which was the reason that the public continues to trust it.
You know, Abela was quite relaxed when he was, as he should be, you know, with such a positive results from the survey. However, you know, as you said yourself, Chris Perigin did point out that the PN were making inroads in a certain number of demographics as well. So, you know, there was something positive to be gleaned by both sides. What's interesting is that Robert Abela announced that the party's general conference would be happening on the 17th to 20th September to plan the future of the party. So I wonder if we'll get an election announcement then, maybe not. Obviously, both parties are very much gearing up for election season. Billboards have appeared, so we're just waiting on a date to see what happens next. Moving on to the next story, a bit of a shocking incident happening over the weekend in Spinola Bay, just down from Portugal. Two Maltese police officers were injured. They even had their uniforms ripped and had their glasses broken during a scuffle over loud music in Spinola Bay at about 3 a.m. So these two officers had received reports over loud music by a group of Venezuelan people in Spinola Bay at about 3:30 in the morning. When they found this group, they were found to be playing music off a speaker in a public space. The people were informed to turn the music off. They refused to, and then allegedly a scuffle ensued with one of the Venezuelan people knocking over one of the officers and even punching and kicking them. The officers called for backup to the RIU and the Rapid Intervention Unit, which quickly appeared, arrested at least 3 people from the group, and they were subsequently charged in court yesterday, and they were given quite hefty fines. 2 of the 3 were given €7,000 fines each, whereas a third was given a €12,000 fine, as well as being sentenced to 1 year in prison, suspended for 3 years. So obviously, don't attack police officers, especially as they're doing their duty, because if you do, you might be fined €12,000 over it.
Yeah, I mean, and rightly so, to be fair. I mean, it's bad enough that they were kind of causing this inconvenience in the neighborhood. If then you're asked to switch the music off by a uniformed police officer, and you still refuse and end up beating them up, then quite frankly, you deserve the punishment. So on to our final story. More and more vehicles, from large buses to private cars, are being abandoned at the former Nashar Trade Fair grounds. The area, which hosts a sizable parking lot, has seen a number of vehicles seemingly abandoned, with some of them having their windows smashed and others collecting layers of dust over the months. A person who wanted to raise the alarm about the issue told Lovin Malta that over 10 buses had been dumped on the grounds without any form of license plate or discs since the early 2020. Despite several calls he's made to the authorities, the person said that nothing has been done. He said he spoke to the local council, which told him that they can't do anything about it because it's private property. The local council, he said, also told him that they had informed Transport Malta and the police, who said they would investigate the matter. But despite this, he hasn't really heard back. To make matters worse, people have begun using the area as a perfect place to abandon unwanted vehicles of their own, leading to a number of smaller cars now joining these large buses. Aside from the vehicles taking up the parking spaces, the broken glass from their smashed windows is also littering the concrete around the area and basically posing a risk to anyone kind of walking through or using the space.
You know, I hadn't thought of the former trade fair grounds and what had become of them. Obviously, back in the day, 10, 20 years ago, they used to be, a really popular place to go out to, get some nice deals, go out with the family as well. Now it's full of abandoned vehicles. In some images, Central Lovin Malta even had some large trucks with the windows completely smashed out. We have a homelessness issue in Malta. I wouldn't be surprised to see if eventually, some homeless people do take advantage of the fact that you have all these empty buildings, especially as the rain season starts to approach us. So we'll definitely have to see if authorities do kind of step in and make sure that the area doesn't fall into total disrepair.
Presumably they will right before the election. I guess it is the counting call, so at some point.
There you go, very fair point.
At some point we might have it clean.
And on that note, that brings us to the end of today's news bulletin. Before we leave, we're going to cut to a quick trailer for the latest episode of Lovin Street, which is all about Gżira and the culture and the rich history and food that you can find there. So stay tuned for that. And as always, have a day full of lovin'. Now, when it comes to epic comebacks, I don't think there's any Maltese town doing it better than Gżira. In the next episode of Lovin Streets, I will find out how such a small, strange little town became numero uno for food and culture in 2021.